The HDR merge feature within Adobe Camera Raw is a great tool for merging a set of exposures into an HDR image, and the results can be quite natural. It's a really easy tool to use. It doesn't feature some of the more advanced commands that you'll get with dedicated HDR software, but if you want a quick, simple HDR image, then it'll allow you to merge a set of exposures in seconds. Now I've got a set of exposures here, obviously taken using a tripod, and you can see we've used a range of different exposures to capture detail in the highlights and the shadows. And now we can merge all this detail into one image using HDR merge. So I'm going to highlight all 5 files here in our set, and I'm going to right click and choose Open in Camera Raw. And then, first of all, I'm going to try and fix the white balance because I think the images are looking a little bit too warm. So I'm going to hit Command or Control and A to select all of the files in the film strip here. Then I'm going to grab the white balance tool from the Tools panel up here, and I can click over a point in the image that I know to be neutral, such as the road or the pavement here. So you can see as I click on it, we get a much cooler palette. We could try clicking a couple more times until we're happy, and I think that's fine. Now, before I merge, I also need to be aware of the noise within the image. So I'm going to double click the zoom tool here to zoom me in to 100% view. And I can see some of the background detail is quite noisy. So I'm going to go to the detail panel here and just dial in some noise reduction using the luminance slider here until I can see that noise disappears. And if we just switch through our images here, I can check the noise levels in the other images, and I'm happy with that. So now I can hit Command or Control and A to select all the files again in the film strip over here, and let's just zoom out to full screen. Now I can go to the little flyout menu at the top of the settings up here, and that allows me to merge to HDR. Now initially our image might look a little rough around the edges, but we can tweak the settings in here to improve it. First of all, we can choose to either have align images on or off, and this just helps if there's some slight misalignment, perhaps someone's nudged the tripod or something between frames, so that'll do no harm to keep that turned on. Now there's also this option here to auto tone, and we can turn that on or off, and you can see the difference that makes. Now, whether you choose to have this auto tone off or on depends on your image, but all this is a set of basic adjustments. You can always go in to the basic panel afterwards and tweak those auto tone settings. So I'll just leave it on for now, and then I can go into the de-ghost settings. Now, because there's a lot of movement in my image, even at low, you can see the de-ghost is affecting large areas of my image. So I'm going to set this to off, and that's giving me a much better result. Now I know there's some movement here that we might want to bring out, but I'm going to do that manually in a moment by merging my set of images in a different way. So I'm just really interested in the detail in the other areas of the image for now. So I'll hit merge, and we'll get a little save box pop up here, and we can just save our new merged HDR in the same folder by default as our other images. And notice we now have a new file appear in our film strip with the suffix here HDR. And notice if we go to my basic panel settings here, you can see we've already got a set of adjustments being made to our image. And these are just those auto tone adjustments, so we can tweak those however we like. We could perhaps bring down the exposure a little bit, tweak the shadows. And notice with the exposure, whereas we'd normally get plus or minus 4, now because we've created an HDR image, we can actually go up to plus 10 and minus 10. So that just gives you an idea of the amount of dynamic range within our image. And we can of course go in and tweak areas selectively if we like, using the different selective adjustment tools such as the adjustment brush. So we could perhaps dial in some positive exposure and begin just painting over areas like this to see if we can pull out a little bit more detail in these areas. And then we can perhaps make a new adjustment just by clicking the minus icon here and darken down other areas of our image like this. Perhaps we could do a darkening down the sky as well. So we can continue tweaking our HDR in this way. We could perhaps go back to our basic panel and increase the clarity just to crisp up the details a little bit. We could also perhaps just up the vibrance a touch to see if we can pull out a bit more color saturation, maybe knock down the saturation a touch. And I'm happy with that, so I'll hit open image. And that's going to open up my image into Photoshop. Now, I want to add a few more traffic trails to add some interest to this area of the image down here. If I go back into Bridge here, notice I've got a few extra images here of different traffic trails that I can add in. So I'm going to add these 3 images into my main HDR. First of all, I can see the white balance is obviously different to the images that we adjusted a moment ago. So I want to apply that same white balance to these new images here. So what I can do is go to one of my white balanced images, right click it and choose develop settings, and then we can choose copy settings, and then I'll select those 3 images there, right click and choose develop settings, paste settings, and that will paste those same set of adjustments. In fact, we can choose whichever adjustments we like. So let's perhaps just use check all and hit OK. And notice now all 3 of those images are going to have the same color temperature as the rest of my set. Now let's open them up into Photoshop, and we can just highlight them all and open images to bring them from Camera Raw into Photoshop. And then using the move tool, I'm going to click and drag this image here up to the tab of my main HDR image, and then down in and release to copy it over. Now before I release my mouse button, I'm going to hold the shift key, and that will allow me to paste it in place. So it's a quick way of making sure it sits directly above my other image, so they're in alignment. Now I'm going to use a blend mode so that only the lighter pixels show up on this top layer, and to do this I'm going to change the blend mode here from normal to lighten. Now if I toggle that layer off and on, you can see how it gives me these traffic trails in this area of the image. I can also fine tune what's visible or hidden by hitting Command or Control and L for levels, and notice as I drag this slider here, you can see if I drag it one way or the other way, I can reveal more or less of the detail on that layer. So I'm going to bring it to a point where we just start to see the trails. But also drag in these points here just to tweak the traffic trails until I'm happy with the blend. I'll hit OK to apply that. Then I can continue with my other images here. So I'll close that one down. Let's go to this one here, drag that one in. Again, hold shift and release to copy it over. Again, change the blend mode here from normal to lighten. And again, hit Command or Control and L for levels, and adjust the level settings until we get the right kind of blend for our traffic trails. Then we'll close that one, go to our 3rd traffic trail image, click and drag to copy it over. Change the blend mode once more, and again use levels to fine tune the blend. And I'm really happy with that. I could perhaps make a final adjustment using curves. So I'm going to click the create adjustment layer icon here and choose curves, and then I could start by adding in a touch of blue, I think. So I'm going to go to the blue channel here and drag upwards on that, just to add in a little bit of blue, perhaps to the highlights, the shadows as well, like this. And then let's go to the RGB channel here and add a touch more contrast like this, just by making a shallow S-shaped curve. And I'm happy with that. You can see the difference that curves adjustment makes. And that's my finished image. So there we have it. That's how to merge a set of exposures using Camera Raw's HDR merge feature, and then take it slightly further with blend modes and layer effects.